Alright, today we're doing what they call a community requested video. Quite a few people have asked about my opinion on two gods, Susano and Chaac. I'm supposed to make videos for both of them, we'll just leave it at Chaac. Susano, I want to see how he develops. At the moment I would say he's piss poor, weak and not worth picking. I may be very wrong though. With Chaac it's a lot easier because the changes are right there on the table. We just have to look at them and see what they do. So if you have not noticed, Chaac got a buff at the very end of PTS. So originally he was gonna get some kind of nerf. He got a better 2 in terms of how it interacts with the swing, that it makes it easier to connect the two rather. But his ultimate was nerfed as such that there was no knock-up anymore on it, and the damage was increased in any situation, but it was decreased for the situations where you previously had the X down. So the damage was only a little bit higher for using it whenever, and it was significantly lower compared to using it when the X was down beforehand. The X ultimate interaction is still gone, so you can just drop your ult whenever and it actually doesn't make any difference. So that's good, because now we have the knock-up back on the ultimate. And that's a very, very potent tool. I've actually written a comment on this on Reddit very, very recently. I said, I don't know if Chaac would actually be overpowered if the case was that he actually had the knock-up all the time. I still don't know, but at the moment I can tell you that Chaac feels really, really strong. Let's look a little bit at what the god offers and what he didn't have before and what makes him better in that regard. So the thing with Chaac has always been that he's got a really, really good laning phase. He's got more than enough, well, bully potential in lane rather, or sustain potential. He's not the one, like he's not Ralphin, he's not gonna punch you in the face continuously, but he will also most likely not die in the lane because he can just, you know, clear with his X and heal up. So he's a very safe lane pick. His problem has always been his reason to be picked in regards to late game. Late game Chaac didn't really offer all that much. He is very ability focused, he doesn't have the basic attack swings to bully enemies with that. His X is kind of slow and relatively predictable, I would say. It's easier or harder to dodge when he is close to you, but at range you can relatively easily dodge it. His 2 is a nice damaging tool, but it's also not crazy. It also benefits more from hitting multiple people, so if you space out a little bit, he gets less benefit from that. His heal and slow is nice, but there are just other warriors that, at least until now, had better options for late game when it comes to zoning or having a general impact on the fight. The knock-up on Chaac's ultimate may very well change that, but it's not only that. The fact that he's knocking up now means he has an option of hard CC to basically interrupt everything the enemies around him are doing. If you don't know, knockups are basically the best CC in the game because no matter what you do, you cannot get out of it until it's done. You cannot beat it or anything like that. You have to preemptively beat in order to prevent the CC, and that's rather strong. So as such, having those CCs combined, the silence that he already had before and the knockup, and having it at all times, no longer being conditional, really helps him. He can use his X to escape or use it for his 3 better and stuff like that, because he really doesn't rely on any timing between the ultimate and the X. That also makes the character a little easier, which is questionable. Chaac was a character that needed to be easier than he is, because he was already considered one of the easiest warriors there. But it gives him a lot more options. If you consider Sun Wukong is by pros generally favored in late game because he has that knock-up, allowing him to go through teams alongside of being a bully that can make singular picks. Chaac's getting pretty close to that in that regard. Obviously his engages are still obvious, he needs to teleport to his X and stuff like that, so he's not quite the same, but at the same time he has a lot more impact. And we're not done there. That's not all that has changed. The other thing that has changed is Runeforged Hammer. Runeforged Hammer, in my opinion, as I've shown in a previous video, is a really good pickup now. It has a lot of potential in early stages of the game. I'm not at the point yet where it will build its second item just because of the defenses on it, but I think it's a good 3rd slot item after getting Breastplate of Valor, for example, getting some CDR, stuff like that, or getting Witchblade if you want to specifically counter someone. And it will help your team across the board. Well, just as a reminder, the damage of Runeforged was increased to 15% bonus damage when an enemy is slowed, and at the same time the price has been dropped significantly to around 2k. So the reason this is so good on Chaac is because Chaac has one of the most available slows in the game. This stems from the fact that it has a relatively large radius, it lasts for a relatively long duration while having a relatively long cooldown as well, and that it can be put in 2 places. You can actually throw the X somewhere in the middle of a team fight without even having to go in, use your 3, and you will slow the enemy. So even if you're on low health and you already have to back out, you can still get the slow on them. Obviously, at the same time, it doesn't benefit your team all that much if you just throw out the X and slow them, because you need to be close for the Runeforged effect to actually work. So the slow around you is the one that really matters in this context, but the other one can still help you close up to an enemy, slow them, and then get your other slow on them. Additionally, with his current kit, it's very easy to just fit an extra slow in there, which doesn't necessarily work as well for all other warriors, because some are really dependent on specific relics, but with Chaac you can easily get a curse on top of that if you want to and if the enemy team demands it. The enemy team comp rather. Obviously, such huge changes to a god kinda come with the question if it actually changes anything about his build and playstyle. Now with Chaac there's always been multiple playstyles. You can go for like a relatively damage focused build, or you can go for one that is more around defense. And we've seen plenty of both in the past, especially because we don't really see much high-level play of him. The build meta for him has always been impacted more by casual plays, and as such, we've seen a huge variety of builds to different effect on him. What I recommend with all these changes that are coming up is center his build around the slow. This is because now we have that new Runeforged, which you want to have on Chaac. It is basically a core item on him because he is the god that makes the most use of it, and as such, you want to have that heal up very often, but you also want to get a lot of the heal. So what I figured would make sense in that regard is you want defense with cooldown reduction, obviously Breastplate of Valor, as it's always been the case, or stuff like Spirit Robe and Mantle of Discord. You also obviously want Runeforged Hammer, which allows you to get some additional health, and so that allows you to be a little more tanky in that regard. And after that, I kind of felt like focusing on items with a mix of power and defense. Because despite of Chaac not having the highest damage numbers that you could possibly get if you're building into stuff like Transcendence or Shifter's Shield, there is a significant benefit to building a power on Chaac, and that's his heal. Chaac's heal scales with 180% of your physical power. So the more power you have, the more this is going to heal, and the values by that you can increase it can be pretty drastic. As such, no item will actually give him more healing than Transcendence, simply due to the raw power this item provides you with, despite of not giving you any penetration or stuff like that. Now I'm not saying skip all of that in every situation, but generally I feel that something like Transcendence is really well suited to him now that you want to have his slow up very often, and you're going to make a lot of use out of it to allow you to stay in the fights for very extended periods of time. And first tests have basically proven that this very well works on him. So while I don't like building Transcendence all too early, and I still think that a more tanky build and having an early Runeforged is really helpful for him, I can recommend going into Transcendence at like 4th slot or something, or 3rd slot maybe, just to get that extra power for the healing. Or you can just go for other power items that provide you with similar stats, and that way allow you to get more use out of the slow while already getting great use out of it because of Runeforged. So, cooldown reduction in the same reasoning. You obviously want to have the heal up as often as possible to get the effect of Runeforged as often as possible, and as such, you should build it. What you should avoid building in those builds to more extent than necessary is health. You're already getting health from Runeforged Hammer, and as his heal doesn't scale percentage-wise, you will effectively heal less of your total health if you have a larger health pool, and you're usually better off building defense and just healing up, because with Chaac, you're gonna get at least 1, if not 2 heals up before you actually go down from full health. This obviously depends on the situation, how much you get focused, but in your average team fight, I usually got around 3 heals actually. So that all factors into his effective health, and that makes defense so much more effective in the context. That's all I can say about Chaac for now, so I can absolutely recommend picking him. I could imagine him actually seeing some nerfs. It's too early to say that, but he's been performing very well, at least today. I've seen him on quite a few people's streams being played in both the team and the enemy team and doing really well. Obviously, he still has the previous issues, like, for example, a very telegraphed kit and stuff like that. But overall, I think he's in a much better place than he's been for basically 2 seasons now. With that, thank you guys for watching. Hope this was informative. Hope this was helpful. I will hopefully see you all tomorrow. SLOTH, out.